nami Bog. Remember, no rush.
The effects of media violence on children has been an issue of debate for decades now. Over 1,000 studies were conducted over the past 40 years that show how there is a correlation between media exposure and children exhibiting violent acts. The role of media in shaping children's behavior has been showcased in studies over time. The National Institute of Mental Health reported that there is a direct correlation between television violence and rampage behavior in children. Professor Dogutas from Barton University explains how children learn violence from TV through the learning theory of criminology, which includes 3 stages: demonstration, reward, and practice. In addition, children may also be affected by the vivid, violent imagery of lyrics in the music they listen to. Another major concern for parents and society is the profound impact of video games, where some research shows how children who play constant video games, such as the game Doom, may have sudden outbursts of violent actions. However, such research only shows circumstantial evidence, since many factors can affect these children other than them playing these video games. Nonetheless, the American Psychiatric Association states that showcasing violence in media does increase children's violent behavior. Despite several studies showing how media violence may affect children, Professor Dogutas does state that eliminating violence from movies, music, or video games will not be efficient to address this problem, and instead, the community should pay attention to a culture of violence that has emerged. At this point comes the role of parents, and how they can counter this phenomenon and how their actions affect their own children. When one comes across aggressive children, we shouldn't completely blame it on the media, but also consider the kind of behaviors the parents display at home. According to researchers, when kids observe their parents behaving aggressively, they tend to believe that it is okay to be violent themselves. In addition, another researcher mentions in an article in the American Psychiatric Association that children who are exposed to corporal punishment by their parents, such as raising heavy items above their heads for a long time, tend to grow up to be violent people. Overall, research has shown several factors to why children may act violently, whether it is directly correlated to media or parents.
So, what do people in the UAE think? We sent out a survey and received results from 80 individuals in the UAE, with ages ranging from 18 to 74, 77.5% of which being female. The majority of the applicants, however, fall under the 18 to 24 age group, with a stark 87.5%. The results also show that the majority of those who filled the survey do not have any children of their own, with only 11.25% of them being parents. 81.25% admit to being exposed to aggressive media, but a majority of 71.25% believe that it does not affect their behavior. When asked about controlling their children's media intake, 85% expressed that parents should be responsible for controlling what their children watch. And finally, we found that the popular opinion in the UAE is that both the media and parents are to blame for the children's behavior. Then, we interviewed some professors to see what they thought of this matter.
I'm Dr. Vernon Pedersen. I'm head of the Department of International Studies. I've lived here in the UAE for the past 2 years.
My name is Mohammad Ayish. I'm the head of the Department of Mass Communication here at the American University of Sharjah. And I've been here for the past 4 years.
Introduce myself. Okay. Hi. Dr. Van Gorp. Political science, international studies. What else do you want from me?
And I have 2 delightful children.
Yes, I do.
How many?
I have 4 daughters.
Yes, I do. I have a 1-year-old. She's almost 2. Little girl, Eloise.
Only moderately.
Well, yes, when they were your age, I was monitoring their media consumption.
Why?
Because I feel that, media do affect, children behavior and, the cultivation theory, of course. Very important force. Media do shape our attitudes and behavior, and sometimes you need to monitor and to make sure that you guide your children, provide guidance right to them, okay?
Do we monitor? We went in with very high hopes, and then you learn very quickly the TV is very useful. But it's easy to monitor because we only have online stuff that we run through the TV. We're not connected to cable, so yes. We do monitor, i.e., do you want to know what type of stuff we let her watch, or?
Sure, yeah.
So, slow television, so cartoons that are, well, I shouldn't say age appropriate. We've started letting her see Shrek or like Nemo or stuff like that, but stuff that she just sees fishes or Donkey.
Basically, I let them watch what they want to watch. I just try to keep them away from the porn channels.
Why?
Because I'm of a generation where that was seen as inappropriate.
Or like slow television that's age appropriate, but not like the very busy, flashy cartoons, because studies show that it's not good for brain development, ADHD later in life, and that kind of stuff. So we try to limit that kind of intake.
No. Oh, 2 questions. My answers are no, the media should not be censored. It's my responsibility.
Well, I don't like the word censored because I think there's something called self-regulation, which means that because of the ethical standards, they need to abide by the ethical standards and the values and whatever. So censorship is not part of my dictionary. And, media should do it on their own because they believe that, they should provide the best and the finest content to the audience. So, I think, it should come from the media.
If those are the 2 options, then I think it's the parents' obligation. I don't think media should be censored, period. I think that everyone should be free to watch whatever the heck they want to watch. I do think you have some personal obligation at some point to monitor what your kids watch. That said, you become very well aware that it's judging other parents and what they're doing it's easy to do, but you shouldn't do it because raising a kid is not easy. So yes, it's the parent's personal obligation to do that.
I can only speak from personal experience. My son and I have watched some appallingly violent war movies and crime films, and so far he hasn't even injured a cat.
I don't. Because if that were true, those are the same arguments they made in the 1990s about video games and Mortal Kombat and all that kind of stuff came out. Oh, violence is good. And violence actually went down. There's actually studies that show that there might be a correlation between video games and the decline of criminal behavior because people are just at home and with entertainment systems rather than out in the streets causing all kinds of bad outcomes. But that being said, I do think there are studies that show that it can influence how your brain develops, which then that might lead not necessarily to criminal behavior, but more difficulty paying attention, which that in turn might cause a young child to act out, and we call that then violence, but that's just a child being bored and trying to find an outlet.
Well, it's not about my thinking, it's about the research findings that show, a lot of bullying taking place in schools, for example, is being informed by some form of television exposure or some movie exposure or some social media exposure,
So I don't think it's, yes, of course, media consumption then has a role there to play, but that's about personal responsibility and about monitoring that stuff, and that's why there are labels there to tell you PG-13, which is actually a pretty bad label because in Holland, where I'm originally from, it's 6, 8, 10, because we know from child developmental stages they can't differentiate between reality and fiction. So in the US, I don't understand why they just do PG and PG-13 because there's kind of a spectrum in between there, but we haven't even gotten to that point yet. But you can tell it now too. My daughter is 2 and she's surrounded by other kids. Well, she's almost 2, by other kids. And some of them are just more violent, some of them are not. And I know that the television intake has very little to do with it because they're all kind of in the same boat as to what they're watching. So that's a very convoluted, roundabout way of answering that question. But
children pay much more attention to the actual real people in their lives and the way they behave. And I've really never seen a case of my kids modeling themselves on television or any kind of media. I think the most I could say is my daughter picks up clothing styles from the internet, but that's, I think, pretty benign.
We then asked students at AUS what they think about the effects of violent media on children. We showed them a short clip from the movie Fight Club and asked them follow-up questions.
Final rule. First night at Fight Club, you have to fight.
This kid from work, Ricky, couldn't remember whether you ordered pens with blue ink or black. But Ricky was a god for 10 minutes when he trounced the maitre d' of a local food court. Sometimes all you could hear were the flat, hard packing sounds over the yelling. Or the wet choke when someone caught their breath and sprayed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Of course not.
No.
How old?
Do you think it's depends on age?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they're teenagers, say I think 16 and above, 18 and above is fine because they probably have watched a lot of movies that already contain violence. But anything below that, I think they don't have the cognitive ability to put this into real life. I mean, like they're gonna implement it in real life. Yeah, if they're younger, they might, because children tend to repeat what they see, tend to act what they see. So I don't think older kids are like that. So yeah,
They would tend to think that this is a normal thing. I mean, they're not mature enough to interpret. You never know how they will interpret these scenes. So you don't know how they will react to this kind of media if they're exposed to it.
Children tend to copy whatever they see in real life. That's why they need to be monitored. And our behaviors always reflect what the real world is like. So we need to behave properly so nothing like this actually happens.
yeah, they always say children take from their parents. So I believe we need to show them good behavior and follow that. I think it's a mix of both because adults as well get affected by media. So how we decide to show our children or how we behave in front of our children or younger siblings, that will definitely affect them because at a point in life they do look up to us because we're the only role models that they know of till a certain age. So I think that does affect them. I don't think my sister would accept to watch something like this. She would directly look away. And that's why I have a negative opinion of her watching something like this.
But do you think she would act on it? Like, do you think if they watch something like this, they would ultimately
be more violent as individuals, or do you think this is something that comes with nature, not something, if they look at media, then they might act on what they see?
It depends on what age they are, because if they were really young, it means that they will they won't distinguish that this is something they can do, so they will actually copy it and do it. But if they were like adults, like kind of like teenagers, as Jovi said, they won't do it.
The parents shouldn't be responsible for everything, because they can only control the exposure to this kind of media to a certain point. Like eventually the child, or like when she or he turns into an adult, he or she is going to be exposed. So I think it should be the media that should be censored.
I think the parents are responsible to a certain limit, but the media targets a different audience, so they can't always censor their programs or what they're showing. So it's also a bit of both, and it depends who the media is targeting.
Yeah, I agree with her. Like, if something is not enjoyable for kids, that doesn't mean it's not enjoyable for adults, because Fight Club, as we saw, it was meant to be watched by like a lot of adults, because a lot of violent scenes were in there. So I don't think it's the parents' responsibility to really censor the children from watching things. So it's okay if the media wants to put out extremely violent things out there. I think the parents should control what their children watch at home.
Yeah, I agree with Jovi too. I mean, parents have ways to like make sure their children are not watching violent programs. So I don't think media really needs to censor anything. We just need to make sure that your children are not watching something that's not suitable for them.
Honestly, I blame the media 75%, because even in cartoon shows you see a lot of violence. All the TV programs that are meant for kids has a lot of violent scenes. So basically, parents can be there for kids 24/7 and monitor everything they see. It's the media that should be taking into consideration that these are kids of the new generation.
Our research has found that the popular opinion in the UAE is that both parents and the media are to blame for the children's violent behavior. However, the literature adds another dimension to the problem. Research shows that although there is a correlation between the children's behavior and both the parents' behavior and media consumption, there also seems to be a genetic component to it.